I'm back in my homeland, back in Africa, in Lake Eyasi region in northern Tanzania with the Hadzabe Bushmen. I really hope that through this video you will find an appreciation and respect for these amazing people just like I do. Enjoy. Hadza camps are usually based underneath rocks or in caves to protect them from the rains. The day before we arrived, we were lucky enough that the Hadza had hunted 3 impalas. We were able to watch them process them in camp. Game meat makes up the bulk of the Hadza's diet. The entire animal is used, nothing is wasted, including all of the organs. This is a prized food source. Wild honey is eaten often and is plentiful in these regions. There are also baobab fruits and root vegetables, as well as a variety of berries that are eaten. This is a diet very high in protein, vitamin C, and fiber. Smoking marijuana is also a huge part of the Hadza culture and lifestyle, and is done on a daily basis. They've explained to me that it improves their hunting success as they tap more into their senses. The hunting has got very hard for the Hadza. Most of the large game have been pushed out of the area due to drought and the increase of farming. Most of their meat diet consists of hunting small game now due to these reasons. Almost all game is hunted with bow and arrow, and they are extremely effective at it. They always seem to be able to feed themselves and never seem to be concerned about when their next meal is coming. So I've had a lot of questions from previous videos about this poison on these arrows when they shoot the animal. How can they consume the animal afterwards without getting sick? So Chamaua has explained that the way that they avoid getting poisoned by eating the animal that they've killed is that they'll cut out the chunk of flesh around where the arrow has penetrated and dispose of it. It's very bitter to eat, and if they do end up eating any of the poison, usually it'll just give them a bit of diarrhea. Unless they have stomach ulcers, something where the poison can get into the bloodstream, it usually does not harm them. I don't know if cooking the meat also makes a difference in neutralizing the poison, but this is the direct translation that I'm understanding from how they do not get sick from eating the poisoned animal. The sumu, or poison for their arrows, is made from the desert rose plant which grows in this arid region. There are other plants where they use berries and the woody parts to make poison, but not as effective as the desert rose. The plant is mashed up and boiled down to a black tar, as seen in this video. This can be stored indefinitely. When they want to apply it to the arrowhead, all they have to do is heat it up over coals in the fire, and then it becomes malleable. It can then be applied to the arrowhead. In order for the poison to work, the arrowhead has to stay inside the animal. That's why all their arrowheads are barbed. The arrow shaft will often break off, leaving the point inside the animal. Hunka is the leader of this group, and I sit down and ask him questions about how to guess the amount of poison to use depending on the animals they're going to hunt. So for the Tandala, which is the kudu, that's the amount of poison he was saying that they use, and then we were asking about other animals. For impala, much less. For baboons, they actually have to use a lot. He's saying because the kind of foods that the baboons eat out here are quite toxic, but their systems handle it. So a small amount of poison will not kill a baboon, so they have to use a large amount of poison. The time that it takes to kill the animal will take anywhere from 20 minutes to hours. It's dependent on how much poison is on the arrow tip and how large the animal is. Modern day bow hunters are always going for a heart or lung shot, and that's kind of what I would assume that their answer would be, but their answer is actually that's not where they want to hit it. The rib bone has the potential to stop the arrow, so they don't prefer not to shoot for that section, they prefer to shoot for the stomach. Hitting the animal in the stomach the poison will take a longer time to work, but it's just a safer option because of the deflection off of a bone on the rib. So here is a pretty good variety of a typical Hadza hunting setup. Obviously that is the bow, and what I wanted to take you through is some of the arrows. So this style here is the dondowako, which is basically a corn cob acting as a blunt small game tip on the end of the arrow. This guy is called kasama, and this is the longer, I guess, like a spoon type point, and ideally used for bush pig, warthog, and then the dik-dik is also a small deer around here that this is preferred. This arrow is ikoa. I'm probably not saying that very correct, but some of the clicks in that are hard in the language. But this is just a standard small game arrow, where it kind of acts like a skewer. So the arrow will go through the animal, still be attached to the animal, and they can retrieve it. They'll sometimes etch. You'll see they've etched out the tip. This kind of acts as barbs. So all these little guys here will help stop the animal from slipping off the arrow. And finally, we have the kadaniako. And this arrow here is the big one, the big boy. This is used for all the big stuff like kudu, baboon. They have explained to me that they use this barbed arrow tip for baboon a lot because the baboon are smart enough to pull the arrows out of their body after they've been shot. So if they try to pull this out, it will cause more bleeding and they won't be able to get it out. So this is the very lethal one, especially because all the black tar-like substance that's been put on the arrow here, this is the sumu, or the poison. So I just asked Kunka about before they had steel to hunt them, what were they using for knives and arrow tips? Knives, he explained, they use a rock that they nap, and it's a white rock. He told me the name, forgotten now, but they can make it very sharp, and that's what they use to cut. But arrowheads, they did not use rock. He actually carved one as a demonstration to show me how they made them. So you see how this is narrower? This is where the poison would go. And then this right here is a break-off tip. So it would go into the animal, break off, and the poison would stay in there. It's barbed right here. They specifically would aim for the stomachs, not the rib area, because if it hit any bones, of course, the wood would probably not penetrate. He says it's a much harder wood than this. It's just an example, but I found that very, very interesting. The Hadzani name for the tree that they harvest the arrows from is called iko. This tree also produces edible berries called kongolobe berries, and so they will usually snack on these while harvesting arrows. The arrows will need to be dried out for a couple of days, and then they will use a combination of fire to straighten them, as well as using their teeth. The bows are harvested from their matatiako tree, and these bows are extremely hard wood. They're left in the sun to dry for 4 days before they start whittling them down to a finished bow. So, hii ni miaka ngapi?
Sasa hivi miaka kama 8.
Nane? He's saying that this bow is about 8 years old, and these bows, I've witnessed them take about 2 to 3 hours to make. It's phenomenal. You'll see right here, they decorate their bows with all of these different pieces of rawhide. This right here is the scent gland of a impala. So they're decorating their bows to always create some meaning. The technique involved to shooting a Hadza bow is that they will aim the bow up towards the sky and draw down. This is a stronger way of utilizing your muscles to pull their extremely strong bows back. They will then reference the animal as well as the arrow tip, which we would call a split vision shooting method. They place a lot of emphasis in making sure that they sight the arrow after it's been shot, as well as aiming at the animal. They are often shooting into thick brush, so it's really imperative that they're able to find their arrow afterwards. I've witnessed them find arrows in the most unforgiving terrain. It's not embarrassing, but it's very humbling to say that I don't have the strength that these guys have to pull these bows back. And it's very impressive. Very impressive. So I just wanted to do a reference for you guys. I cannot draw their bows back. The expertise involved in making bowstrings is impressive. They will usually use the backstrap or leg sinew, or they will use skins from animals. They use a reverse wrap method to make their rope strong, and it's multi-braided. I asked him, well, why would you not use a modern day rope? And he says because of the noise. So over here this guy's got like a piece of paracord, you can see. So they do get given these. I bring it in to them at times, paracord, but it makes distinct noise when it's released that they say will spook a lot of the game. So they prefer to use the natural sinews and skins when they can.
And that's okay. That's okay.
All right, so these are the bows we harvested the other day. And we've got some arrows. They've all been lying out drying for a couple days, and now we're going to start the whittling process. So I'm going to break down exactly how this happens. Arrows and bows have the bark peeled by using their teeth on the first day of harvest. Once they've been dried out for a couple days, the arrows are then run over hot coals in order to make the wood more supple so that they can be straightened. They have a very unique but effective way of straightening these arrows by using their teeth and then sighting down the arrow. They have the ability to straighten arrows to a level that would leave anyone absolutely awe-inspired. The straighter the arrow, the better it flies and the more accurate it is at hitting a target. So for them, it's imperative that this is done to a high level. They are truly experts in their craft in every sense, and it really is a sight to behold. So first he'll start with the wrap in the back of the knock, and that is to strengthen the knock so that when the string is pulled back, it doesn't end up splitting the knock. So you see this right here can be split in the middle, so the sinew will stop that from happening. So you split the feather in half, he just trims off the quill. If it's too thick, it sticks off the arrow shaft too much. Trims it off. So there we go, one fletching. So one at a time. I missed the start there, but they will first do a couple wraps with the sinew, and this is the sinew from the impala, and then they'll add one fletch, one wrap, full wrap, and another fletching, another wrap, and then the third one, another wrap. They start at the back, so it's right at the back of the arrow, and then he's going to fold them all over and then tie them down the front.
Sorry.
Okay, there we go. These guys work so fast that I'm missing little parts that I would like to record. So forgive me for missing the in-between parts, but hopefully I'm able to describe this well enough. So beautiful, look at that. Trimming off the end of the quill so that doesn't get in the way. And they'll probably finish off with wrapping a bit more sinew just to clean that up, make sure there's no little parts that get caught onto your hand, because this, with the firing technique of this, you're using your hand as the arrow rest, so those quills could definitely injure you. Okay, usually I've seen them they can burn the feathers, trim them off with a coal, but he's just using underneath side of his sandal with a knife this time, and that looks like that's perfect. So nashukuru sana, safi sana. There we go, nzuri sana. Wewe ni fundi sana. At the end of the day, it's all about slowing the arrow down so it's got more accuracy to keep the tip of the arrow steady. It's a lot more primitive when compared to a modern day arrow, but it works for them. First off, you'll see that they're chopping the ends of each bow. So this is the first end he started, and then he's already done that end. So he's done both ends. He's created a taper. Then it'll move into the whittling process or the shaving process. We'll start tillering the bow from the center where you hold it all the way down to the end. The Hadza style of bows, they're round bows, which is more conducive to the materials that they find here, because you'll notice that this branch is basically a small tree branch, usually no more than like 2 inches in diameter. So they're really utilizing the wood to its sort of in the most efficient way. So right now he's just whittling down and sort of slowly tillering the bow, and they're keeping an eye on things like knots in the wood or weakness in the wood. They use the technique of carving by the left hand acting as the guide for how much gets shaved off, as you can see. So those 4 fingers grab the spine of the knife and the thumbs applying the pressure, and this is how they kind of almost plane the wood to get even shape throughout. Now that the bow's been roughly shaped, he has put it in the fire to warm up the wood. The same thing that's done with the arrows to make the wood a little more supple. And then they'll use, like he's using roots here. I've often seen them use like a forked, two trees close together or a forked branch to kind of pry the bent areas into shape to straighten out the bow. Right, so this is the inner bark, cambium layer of the same tree that the bows are made of. And Matayo will wrap this around to act as a stopper for the bowstring. I'm no longer the reigning champion.
Yeah, he got this last round.
Chemawa got.
And then he got this second round.
Okay, so Chemawa got.
He's like NBA
last round
Jams
and then this
on
round.
fire.
Yeah. All right, final competition.
Right.
I decided to retire while I was on top.
Yeah, Joel.
You guys are providing the challenge, Chemawa.
Retired announcer now.
Okay, Chemawa Kwanza. Oh, bang! Now he's got.
Eyes in a row.
Oh.
A bit low.
Oh, very good.
Already got a bullseye.
Coming out of retirement,
Yeah.
and I'm challenging the reigning champion. No.
Don't worry.
Loser.
The reigning champion. Yes.
There we go.
I mean,
That's
he's-
Chemawa's.
Yeah.
Look at that for consistency with a primitive bow. Hey? Look at that. Unbelievable. Dogs are a huge part of Hadza culture. I cannot get an exact date as far as how long they've been using dogs, but I know it's at least for 5 generations. The dogs truly are hunting companions, and without them they would have a hard time hunting certain species like baboon and game birds. The dogs are fed ugali, which is a maize flour that's cooked up for them. They also get given a bunch of meat scraps after hunts, as well as the leftover honey after a beehive has been raided. These dogs are more like wild animals in the sense that they drink when water is available, and they eat when food's available. This is one of the dogs that the Hadza used to hunt. You can see they're all pretty skinny, but they do have enough on them to be healthy. But this little guy here, you can see there, he's been attacked by a baboon. They were just telling me that right now. And the dogs definitely do take some abuse with the hunting, but these are tough dogs. The Hadzabi live an egalitarian lifestyle. There is no hierarchical system. You will often hear me referring to Nkunka as a chief, and he's not technically the chief. He is the elder, and he's certainly the leader, but it's interesting how it works because he is the leader, but he doesn't govern, if that makes sense. It's quite beautiful how it works. But yeah, I just wanted to make that clear when I refer to him as the chief. Technically, that's not true. The Hadza women are expert craftsmen just like the Hadza men. They definitely have an artistic flair. While the men are responsible for hunting and protecting the family, the women are responsible for building the huts, for foraging, collecting water, and cooking the food. The men will often bring back meat for the woman, but it's when they bring back honey, as in this video, when the women are extremely happy and appreciative. The women will also look after the children while the men are hunting, but when the men are back, the children are involved with everything the men do. From my experience, they are extremely well behaved, quiet, and do not demand much attention from the adults. By 8 years old, the average Hadza boy will be able to hunt sufficiently by himself to feed himself. That was so awesome. Tonka just made his son a bow and arrow, and he just shot it, and he's 18 months old, and kind of knew what he was doing too. Unbelievable. So cool. He's so cute. Hey, Pa'ana. Ah, very good. He's teaching his son to shoot the bow. Baobab fruit is a huge part of the Hadza's diet. Their preferred method of consuming it is to soak it in water until all the fruit mixes into the water like a smoothie. They usually will add honey in with this to sweeten it up. This is going to be very rich in vitamin C and fiber. Baobab trees are a significant survival resource to the Hadza. In real months of drought, they will actually remove the woody part of the tree to suck the moisture out.
Cheers.
Cheers. There we go. Finished baobab fruit smoothie with wild honey.
Yeah, wild
Here we go.
nectar. That's a good hydration elixir.
Oh, it's so good. A lot of pieces in it, but oh man. That will get you going.
Yeah.
That is great. Most of the year their drinking water comes from seep wells that they dig into the lower part of the creek bottoms. This arid environment provides very few water sources. The Hadza can go through very long periods of not drinking water and never seem to be concerned about when they'll find it next. Today we are with the women who don't take the spotlight as much, but let me sing their praises. So they definitely are hard workers, and we all know that behind every good man is a better woman. So we're going to go out and learn some things from them. They have better understanding with a lot of the medicinal plants and the wild edibles. So today we're on the lookout for some root vegetables that they eat, and they're going to show us how they harvest them.
These are this part of the roots. So this is attached to a big root.
Okay,
So
yeah,
once
so
we
once
get
they
to
find
these, then
those...
they know there's a big one.
Okay. Callie's been out with them several times before today, so she has a much better idea of how they find these. Okay.
So see right.
That's
So here's a little one, and then here's a huge one right here.
Yeah. This root is a chumuko and provides a good source of starch to their diet. Kelly, our kangaroo, show us your pouch.
All right, so this is the
That
harvest.
is a harvest. That's a load. Look at that. That is
Out of one hole.
that is a lot.
And other times, out of one hole, or a couple holes in one area like this, we've gotten twice this much.
Yeah.
So,
That was about no more than 15 minutes.
yeah.
2 holes mainly came out of 1 hole, and that is easy calories. I cannot figure out how she knows that this root is here. Cannot get it out of her. I've asked her if there's like little plants that identify it. She keeps on saying she just knows. So maybe there is just a sixth sense of finding these things, but seems to be more mystery than science to me at this point. This next root is called etqua. This root has to be cooked to be eaten, and you cannot actually swallow the fibers. So you'll chew on it and suck out the moisture and then spit the fibers out. that's a pretty good staple for them. They prefer to eat these only when they have to, as the honey and the meat is usually always preferred over this, but great starchy vegetable with calories. Basically like taking a bunch of potatoes and chucking them in the fire. The skin will char and will not be eaten, but they'll open up the inside, and that's the edible part. You don't actually eat the fibers. You chew on them, suck the juice out, and then spit the fibers out. And you sort of extracting the fluid more than anything.
It's like cattails.
But,
I mean, that's what I do with the root.
Yeah.
There's different ways to process cattail roots, but the most efficient one I found is just to roast it on the fire and chew the cattail root, and you get all the carbs in the juice and then spit out the pulp instead of taking all the time to separate the
Correct.
pulp.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like
To extract the starch out of the root instead of,
yeah,
like a lot of people boil it to get that starch to separate.
exactly. But if you don't have a pot or if you
Then
don't
you
have
just-
the time, you just throw it on the fire and just chew it, get all those carbs in the starches in your mouth, and spit
And then
out
spit it out. Yep.
the fibers. Yeah.
Yeah, because they still get the starch out of this. Taste this. I mean, it's like not wow, this tastes great, but it doesn't taste bad. It's just flavorless, which is often I find a good characteristic for wild plants, because a lot of them can be quite hard to consume because of the bitterness. You know, very astringent, which is healthy in that, but taste wise you can't eat a lot of it. But this you could eat a lot. So here we have the local beer brewed here in Hadza land. It's millet, maize, and one other thing, and I don't remember, but it definitely tastes like alcohol. So look at that, just like a milky soup. So most certainly fermented and pretty good. Oh.
Guilabi, semevita, Guilabi, semevita, Balako, semevita, Balako, semevita, Balako, semevita, Guilabi, semevita, Congoloko, semevita, Waieta.
Thanks for watching. Please tune in to episode 2 of this Hadza documentary.